Hi, I'm going to use the online course ACTE 630 that I had taken earlier in the fall and use the QM rubric to see how it is laid out. And so starting at the beginning where it says course overview and introduction, the very first one says instructions are made clear on how to get started and where to find various course components. So at the top, there's even a button that says Getting Started. Let's see what it looks like. In this page, there's a welcome to the course, talking about how the flow of the course and what's going to be expected of you, how it's mostly going to be an asynchronous class, that there in the discussion place there is a help posting board for technical difficulties, so that actually jumps down to some of the course technology criteria on the rubric, and also some tutorials for using D2L in case something goes wrong. So let's look back at our home page and see what else. So you see the professor, Dr. Drian, here with an introduction and ways that we can contact him if needed. And scrolling down to the bottom of that home page, we also see some of the standards of academic integrity that are stated through the Student Code of Conduct and Millersville University's policy. And then another rubric that is addressed is about the etiquette expectations. And in each of these tabs, it shows what's expected, how to be conscientious contributors to the discussion. And so I believe that most of the course overview and introduction criteria on the rubric has been met. Let's move on to the learning objectives. So when we go to the modules, at the very top of the module is the objectives for the class, and then an overview. What's nice here, they are directly stated, and so you know what you're going to be learning, and what the requirements are for each of the objectives. I like how, too, at the very top it gives you the due date. The one thing that you could say is missing is showing the state standards that are addressed, but again, the rubric that we are looking at is for K-12 and not necessarily grad work. So when we do our own postings and unit, we should probably state which standard we are addressing along with our module objectives and overview. Moving on to the instructional materials, I'll get back to the assessment later. The instruction materials are relevant to what we're going to be learning. There's links to the different either videos or readings that we are being assigned. It tells you the expectations of what you need to include to do a good job on the assignments. And so looking over the rubric, it says that the instructional materials prepare students to meet those standards. Well, I'm sure there's standards for the course that was designed here. And the one thing, there's lots of links to the resources, and then within those links, you can see the citations at the very beginning. Right here you can see, where it came from and directly where the material is from. Then moving on to measurements and assessments, you can see under the assessment tab, sometimes teachers give rubrics for what they're expecting the projects to look like. In this course, there weren't any rubrics posted. And then also under the modules, let me get back to the modules, you can see, let's pick a different module. You can see at the end of the module what's required, and it clearly says what you should be doing. What I really appreciate about the assessment and measuring is the feedback that we're given when we have grades. It's nice to know, what you did well and how your projects were received. So you can see here some of the feedback that I got for the projects I did. And then going to the learning, interaction, and engagement, they definitely promote what we've been learning and how they're matched up to the standards. And so, again, learner interaction goes a lot with the instructional materials. You can see under some of the posts, let me get to a post on the discussion board, how the instructor doesn't always comment to every person, but when they do, it's to advance what's going on in the learning that's already there. And so the interaction between all the learners is fairly engaging, especially when the criteria is given that we need to respond to at least 2 people post, and most often it goes beyond that, which is where I see a lot of the learning happening. Under the course technology part of the rubric, I'm in one of the first modules, and it says how students can readily access the technologies, and so even the new tools that we were learning, you can see how there's tutorials attached, which was very helpful in case you've never used it before. And there was a variety of tools that were offered. We were expected to research some Web 2.0 tools and see how they fit what we are going to be teaching. And then the learner support. The course identifies policies and services for all students. The course instructions articulate or link a clear description of technical support offered. You can see that throughout the modules when there's tutorials and feedback from the professor about what he's expecting out of our research. And the last rubric, or the last part of the rubric that we want to look at, is accessibility. Thinking about the UDLs, you can see how the module is very streamlined. It doesn't have a lot of graphics that distract. The font could be larger, but that could be up to the person looking at it on their computer. The links, I don't have a screen reader right now, but I'm thinking that the links tell you exactly where it's going to be going, and then any of the videos have closed captioning. And so let's look at the next parts of this assignment. I would say, looking at the rubric and the online class, let me get this lined up, that the online class did a great job of assessing these different standards. The course overview and introduction was very clearly posted. The objectives for each of the modules, the assessment and measurement for each of the assignments was clearly stated, and there was a variety. The only thing missing, in my opinion, would be if there would be a rubric attached to explicitly say what the instructor is looking for in some of the projects. The materials were at an academic level that's appropriate for grad work, so we need to make sure that that's true of ours as well. There was definitely learner interaction and engagement because of the postings that we needed to do and how we were expected to respond to at least 2 of our classmates The technology was there, a variety of videos and readings, and also tutorials on how to use D2L and such. And then again, just the learner support of making sure that, you know, the instructions are clear, and the organization of the course itself to make sure that we reach our educational goals, and then the accessibility. So how is this going to help me? Or what else did I learn in through the chapters 3 and 4, the text? The instructor, Dr. Drian, definitely had a constructivist approach where we were allowed to research and develop ideas and projects more independently. We were encouraged to not all pick the same Web 2.0 tool, and so we could learn a variety of them. It was more like the kind of like the jigsaw strategy that we read about in chapter 4. It clearly shows that the whole class was planned prior to launching. Oops, I had written this part about a different class that I actually couldn't open, so this is not true of the one I'm doing. This actually happened in another online class. There was a glitch that it made it a little unhandy to get started at the beginning of the class, but it was quickly fixed, and the instructor accommodated. So sorry about putting that into this one. I liked the order, the sequence of the learning. Like, it looked the same in each module. You had your objective, you had your materials, you had your assignments, your expectations, and then every now and then there was announcements that linked like one concept to the next, which was very helpful. And then I think the strongest point of this course was the development of the learning community. So again, I've said that more than once, that that's one of the best things I've seen throughout the courses, the online courses I've been taking, the learning interaction among the students. In the case study analysis, that was one of the projects we had to do, where we were asked to develop a solution to a case study. It was more of looking at the different tools and how we could use them in our classroom. So I would consider that the case study. So some things that I picked out from the rubric and the reading, and looking at an online class that has been developed for mine. I like chapter 4, some of the assignment templates that I want to incorporate into my 3-day unit. I want to post some videos and again make sure that they're accessible. I want to do some inquiry learning where they manipulate, probably virtually, to figure out the properties of transformations. They can do an online simulation, and then for their very last culminating project, create a podcast or a Screen-O-Matic similar to what we're doing to showcase what they've learned. And the templates in chapter 4 were very helpful for seeing how this should be laid out, and how we can make sure that we address every part of it in our lesson. So thanks for watching.